It's common in photography classes to hear about the infamous exposure triangle. To let the right amount of light into your camera, you can change one of three variables. Three connected things look nice written out as a nice little triangle. However, because of my real-world experience in the industry and having taught photography for a decade, here is the reason I don't teach the exposure triangle to my photography students. Stay to the end because you are going to learn a great new way to think about balancing your meter. The three variables to control how much light comes into your camera are these: aperture, aka the f-number, aka the iris. Open or close it like a window to let in more light or less light. It also changes the depth of field. Shutter speed, make it faster or slower. Now you're making moving subjects sharper or blurry. ISO, videographers call this the gain. This is your camera's sensitivity to the light in the first place. Low ISO for when there's plenty of light, and higher when there's not much light to work with. But be careful, because when you increase your ISO, you get noise. Three variables, three sides. Triangle. Except not, because teaching it as a triangle makes you weight all three the same. They aren't. Back in the film days, you couldn't change your ISO, also known as the film speed, without burning through the rest of your film you had in your camera and loading in a new roll. In digital photography, you can change your ISO on the fly as needed. However, that doesn't mean you should put ISO up on a pedestal with aperture and shutter speed. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me explain. When you're about to take a picture and you're reading the meter to change your exposure settings, which one do you change first? Your ISO. Set it and forget it.
Set it and forget it.
Set your ISO depending on the light scenario you find yourself in, and then don't worry about it again unless your light changes. 100 for full sun, 200 for partial shade, 400 for full shade, and so on. Now that that's out of the way, what's left is the aperture and the shutter speed. Which one do you worry about next? Whichever one is your priority. Whichever is most important in the moment. Let's say you're shooting portraits. Portraits look great with a shallow depth of field, so that sounds like you're doing the aperture. And then your shutter speed becomes the sliding scale to balance the meter and let in the right amount of light. Now, let's say you're taking photos at a basketball game. What's most important there is to get a nice sharp image so you can see the action and the players aren't a blurry mess. So in that case, your shutter speed is your priority. Then you open or close the aperture to balance the meter. Do you see what I'm getting at? You don't need to juggle all three variables at once. At any given time, you're really only thinking about one. First, do your ISO for your light scenario.
Set it and forget it.
Then, whichever is your priority in the moment. Then, whichever one is left, you use to balance the meter. I don't teach the exposure triangle because the exposure variables don't make a triangle. It's a hierarchy. There's a logical flow, so you don't have to juggle all three balls at once. Do you disagree with my method? Let's start a conversation in the comments about it. What's your go-to exposure variable? Like this video and subscribe to my channel if you found massive value in this short video. Catch you on the next one.